The controversial story. Behind Mother's Day. The truth no one knows. Mother's Day is a time of flowers, cards, and family celebrations. But behind the smiles and the sweetness is a story stained with grief, betrayal, and heartbreak. A story of a woman who fought for mothers to be remembered, only to see her dream twisted into a commercial spectacle she despised. It all began with Anne Reeves Jarvis, a woman who believed that mothers were the backbone of any community. In the shadowed hills of West Virginia during the 1850s, Anne organized Mother's Day work clubs, gatherings where local women learned how to care for their families in a time when disease was as common as the morning mist. These clubs were more than just social gatherings. They were lifelines. When the American Civil War broke out, Anne's mission grew even greater. Her clubs became sanctuaries for mothers who watched their sons march off to war, some to never return. But Anne did not choose sides. Her clubs cared for wounded soldiers, Union and Confederate alike. To her, a mother's love did not recognize the colors of a uniform. Anne's compassion became her legend, but it was also a burden. She buried children lost to disease, watched friends become widows, and struggled to maintain hope in a world that seemed bent on suffering. Yet through it all, she taught her own children a lesson, that love must be given freely, without expectation of reward. Among those children was Anna Jarvis, a girl who watched her mother's sacrifices and grew up seeing the strength of mothers who held communities together. For Anna, her mother was more than just a parent. She was a hero. But as the years passed, time took its toll. In 1905, Anne Reeves Jarvis passed away, leaving behind a legacy of love, sacrifice, and community. But for Anna, the loss was unbearable. She had not just lost a mother, she had lost her guiding star. Grief became her constant companion. But in her sorrow, an idea began to take shape. A way to keep her mother's memory alive. A day to honor not just her own mother, but all mothers who had given so much. But Anna did not want a grand celebration. She wanted something simple, something pure. A day when children would write letters to their mothers, expressing their gratitude. A day of quiet reflection, not of lavish gifts. She began writing letters, reaching out to churches, schools, and community leaders. She spoke of her mother's work, her sacrifice, her love. Her words touched hearts, and in 1908, the first official Mother's Day was celebrated at a church in Grafton, West Virginia. White carnations, her mother's favorite flower, were handed out to honor the purity of a mother's love. People wept, prayers were whispered, and Anna felt a sense of peace. Her mother's spirit lived on. But what Anna did not know was that her beautiful dream, this day of love and remembrance, was about to become a nightmare. Because in a world driven by profit, even the purest of dreams can be corrupted. And for Anna Jarvis, the battle for Mother's Day was just beginning. At first, it seemed like a miracle. Anna Jarvis's dream had become a reality. Mother's Day was officially recognized. Churches embraced it, schools held celebrations, and families came together to honor the women who had given them life. But beneath the flowers and the smiles, something dark was growing. Businesses saw an opportunity. Florists began marketing special Mother's Day bouquets. Candy companies designed Mother's Day chocolates, and greeting card manufacturers printed mass-produced messages of love. To them, Mother's Day was not a sacred day of gratitude. It was a gold mine. Anna watched in horror as her simple, heartfelt holiday was twisted into a commercial monster. Prices for white carnations, her mother's beloved symbol, skyrocketed. Stores advertised Mother's Day sales, urging people to spend money rather than share heartfelt words. The woman who had fought so hard to create a day of love and reflection now found herself in a war. She wrote furious letters to newspapers, condemning the greed that had taken over. Mother's Day was meant to be a day of sentiment, not profit, she declared. But the world wasn't listening. Instead, it mocked her. Journalists who had once praised her now called her the woman who hated Mother's Day. Businesses labeled her a fanatic, an old woman who could not understand progress. Even some churches began using Mother's Day to raise funds, selling flowers in her mother's name. But Anna did not give up. She filed lawsuits against companies that used the term Mother's Day without her permission. She boycotted stores, stood in front of shops, and begged people to remember the true meaning of the day. But the more she fought, the more the holiday grew. Her letters became desperate. "This is not what I wanted. This is not what my mother deserved," she cried. But the world had moved on. To most, Mother's Day was a time to buy, to give gifts, to spend money, not to remember a woman's sacrifice. But for Anna, the nightmare was just beginning, because as she lost control of her dream, she also began to lose something even more precious, her hope. For every flower sold, for every card printed, she felt her mother's memories slipping away. And in the shadows of a world driven by profit, Anna Jarvis became a ghost. A woman screaming into the wind, a prophet whose vision had been stolen. But her fight was not over. Because Anna was not just a woman. She was a daughter who loved her mother, a believer who refused to surrender, and her battle for the soul of Mother's Day had only just begun. Anna Jarvis was not just disappointed, she was outraged. Her vision of Mother's Day was being corrupted before her eyes. What was meant to be a day of heartfelt gratitude had become a festival of greed. But Anna did not just watch, she fought. In 1912, she founded the Mother's Day International Association, a group dedicated to preserving the true meaning of the holiday. Her voice was a force. She wrote letters to newspapers, gave passionate speeches, and confronted anyone who used the holiday for profit. But her fight was not just in words. Anna stood in the streets, handing out pamphlets that condemned the commercialization of Mother's Day. "It is not a day to sell flowers," she cried. "It is a day to honor mothers." But the world had changed. Businesses saw her as a nuisance. Newspapers mocked her, calling her the woman who hated Mother's Day. Former allies turned against her, joining the rush to make money from the holiday she had created. Even churches, sacred places she once trusted, began selling flowers to raise funds, using Mother's Day as an opportunity for profit. Anna's fight became desperate. She filed lawsuits against companies that used the term Mother's Day without her permission. She protested outside stores, demanding that people remember the true meaning of the holiday. But for every protest she led, 100 more advertisements appeared. Her letters grew darker. "You have taken the soul of Mother's Day," she wrote. "You have turned a sacred day into a circus." But the world ignored her cries. Yet Anna refused to surrender. In 1923, she stormed into a candy makers convention, accusing them of exploiting the holiday. In 1925, she was arrested for disorderly conduct while protesting a charity event that sold Mother's Day flowers. But even this did not stop her. She spent what little money she had on legal battles, borrowing from friends, selling her possessions, living in poverty, all for a dream she could not let go. But as the years passed, her battle became a tragedy. Anna became a ghost, haunting the holiday she had given to the world. A woman who had sacrificed everything for a dream she could no longer control. Her friends turned away. Her family grew ashamed, and the world moved on, celebrating Mother's Day with flowers, chocolates, and cards, never knowing the name of the woman who had given them this day. But Anna did not disappear, not yet, because in her heart she believed she could still save her mother's memory. And so, she continued to fight, even as the world forgot her. Anna Jarvis was not just fighting against businesses, she was fighting against a world that had turned her dream into a joke. As the years passed, Her protests grew louder, but her voice grew weaker. What began as a day of love and gratitude had become a festival of profit, and Anna was seen as nothing more than a bitter old woman. But Anna refused to be silent. She stood outside flower shops, handing out pamphlets that condemned the commercialization of Mother's Day. "This is not what I wanted," she cried to passers-by. But most ignored her. Some laughed. Some whispered that she was mad. Her fight turned desperate. She wrote letters to newspapers, pleading with the public to see the truth. "Mother's Day was meant to honor love, not sell it," she wrote. But her letters were rarely published. Editors saw her as a nuisance, a relic of a forgotten cause. And then the lawsuits began. Anna sued florists who used the term Mother's Day without her permission. She sued greeting card companies for turning her holiday into a product. But the courts dismissed her claims. The world saw her as a fanatic. Her anger grew wild. In 1923, she stormed into a candy makers' convention, shouting that they were exploiting her mother's memory. In 1925, she was arrested for disorderly conduct at a charity event where flowers were being sold for Mother's Day. The newspapers mocked her arrest, calling her the woman who hated Mother's Day. But the worst betrayal came from the very groups she once trusted: churches. Places where her mother's memory was supposed to be honored now sold flowers as fundraising tools. Priests and pastors spoke of the beauty of Mother's Day while handing out carnations with a price tag. Anna's protests became chaotic. She would stand on street corners, her once clear voice now hoarse with anger, screaming at crowds to remember the true meaning of Mother's Day. But the more she shouted, the more the world ignored her. Her friends turned away. Her family distanced themselves. Even those who had once admired her saw her as a bitter, lonely woman lost in her obsession. They whispered that she was mad, that she had become a ghost, haunting the holiday she had given to the world. By the 1930s, Anna was living in poverty. Her money was gone, spent on legal battles and protests. She moved from one small room to another, her possessions reduced to a suitcase filled with letters that no one would read. Her health failed. Her eyesight dimmed. But her anger burned as fiercely as ever. She wrote one last letter to a major newspaper, begging them to tell the truth about Mother's Day. But it was never published. In 1948, at the age of 84, Anna Jarvis died in a sanitarium, alone, forgotten, and penniless. The woman who had given the world a day of love was buried without fanfare. No flowers marked her grave, no cards bore her name, but outside, the world continued to celebrate. Millions bought flowers, chocolates, and cards, never knowing the woman who had given them this day or the price she had paid. Yet even in death, Anna's story was not over. Because the truth never dies. It only waits to be remembered. So, what have we learned from the story of Anna Jarvis? Is it just a tale of one woman's struggle? Or is it a warning to us all? Because the truth is, we choose how we remember Mother's Day. We can choose to see it as just another holiday, a time for gifts and empty gestures. Or we can choose to see it as Anna saw it, a moment of true gratitude, a time to honor those who gave us life. But will we remember the woman who gave everything for this day? A woman who fought for a dream and watched it become a nightmare? A woman who believed in love even when the world around her chose profit? Anna Jarvis's story is not just about a holiday. It is a story about how even the purest dreams can be corrupted, how love can be sold, how a sacred promise can be turned into a product. But it is also a story of courage. The courage of a woman who refused to be silent, who stood against a world of greed, who never stopped believing in the power of a mother's love. And so, when you celebrate Mother's Day, remember Anna's story. Don't let it be just another day of flowers and cards. Let it be a moment of true gratitude. Write a letter. Share a memory. Say thank you. Not because it's expected, but because it's true. Because the greatest gift you can give is not something bought, it is something felt. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe to Uncle Luke Tells. Share this video with others so they too can know the truth behind Mother's Day. Because the greatest stories are not just the ones we tell, they are the ones we choose to remember.